The 581st edition of the Four Corners podcast starts right now.
This is the Four Corners podcast.
And that could make a difference. Lawson at the buzzer. Got it! Maybe not. Ty Lawson wins it at the buzzer.
Deep three. And Green rips down the rebound in traffic. 4-on-1.
What a great job. What a terrific job in transition. I mean, you couldn't plan that any better as a coach.
Gets the roll. Here we go. Page has it. Carolina down one. 84-83. Page into the front court with 4 seconds. Page to the rim. Got it! He got it! 9/10 of a second to go. Inbounds. Washington gets it to Warren. His full court shot. No good. Marcus Page baby. Does it for the Tar Heels. Carolina wins it.
Don't force it if you're Goss.
Comes in. Blocked by Meeks. Barry up ahead to Jackson. And he tucks it down for the 5-point lead. Matthews off the mark. And this year the confetti is going to fall for North Carolina. They're not going to be denied this time. Inside 30 overall. Love, top of the key. Oh! Big time delivery.
Here are your hosts, Josh Marlowe and Anthony Pagnotta.
Hello and welcome into another live edition of the Four Corners podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services. Just Josh here with you guys tonight. Something we've been waiting for all offseason, the Hubert Davis, midsummer press conference, something that's usually getting in June or July. Well, we got it yesterday, and I'm here to recap that presser. 15 audio cuts set to come your way. So over the next 45 minutes or so, I will bring you what I thought was the best talking points from that press conference. You'll hear from head coach Hubert Davis, and then I will react to those cuts. If you cannot tell, my voice is still a little strained from Monday night's home opener for football that did not go as planned, did not stop me, though, from enjoying the first quarter and a half or so before that game really got away from Carolina as TCU, was able to run the heels out of the building in Bill Belichick's debut. But nonetheless, we got a big presser to recap and react to, and we'll get to that here in just a moment. Before we do that, we start every edition of the pod, as we always do, with the pod thought of the day. And one of the many celebrities that was in town for Bill Belichick's home opener, Michael Jordan, is where we get today's pod thought. And that thought is, quote, "My father used to say that it's never too late to do anything you wanted to do. And he said, you never know what you can accomplish until you try," end quote. A lot of things Carolina needs to accomplish this year. And you'll hear from that from the head coach here momentarily. But some of it means they needed to maybe try some new things and open up the box and kind of maybe pivot from the way Carolina has traditionally done things. But, you can only do that if you're willing to do it. And Hubert Davis and this coaching staff, with the addition of a GM, were confident and courageous enough to maybe do some things we're not used to seeing Carolina basketball do. But it was all done with the mindset, with the hope of setting this team, setting this program up for short-term success beginning this year that will carry over into long-term success. So love that pod thought there from MJ. We go to him very frequently. I'm sure we'll hear from him again in many future episodes. Let's go ahead and get right to tonight's order of business. That's the Hubert Davis offseason presser that was held on Tuesday. And I mean, talk about the jokes writing themselves after the way the Kenan Stadium emptied in the third quarter on Monday night, and everyone tweeting it's on to basketball season in Chapel Hill. I mean, the very next day we get this presser. Usually you hear from the head coach of your program in June, Sometimes for Carolina, it's been July. It wasn't even August that we heard from Hubert. We had to wait all the way until September as he talked about a roster that has 10 new players. The first time he's formally addressed the addition of Jim Tanner, the GM, and then the expectation that he has to deliver upon this year, which is why I got 15 audio cuts that we're going to tackle. And let's go ahead and let's just get right into this thing. The first piece of business that the head coach talked about was he said that they felt like they accomplished all of their needs in the summer or in the spring and summer transfer portal windows.
I thought we needed to be bigger. Positional size. We needed more size. I think the number one determinant factor of an outcome of the game is rebounding. I thought defensively we were okay, rebounding percentage-wise, but offensive rebounding was nothing near where we needed to be. I wanted to become more versatile, have different types of lineups, and I feel like with this roster, we've been able to identify both of those things.
Something we talked a lot about when the season came to an end. We knew this team had to get bigger. They definitely did that, and I don't want to sell Hubert short. I don't know if we'll ever have a coach that values rebounding the way that Roy Williams did in my lifetime. And from the coaches that have coached, whether it's Carolina or my favorite NBA team, or I watch and consume a lot of basketball. I don't know if I've ever heard a coach stress the importance of rebounding quite like Roy Williams did. But I think this is something that was a theme for Hubert this offseason was not that he became to the realization. I just think he kind of reinforced the importance of rebounding. It's the most important aspect of the game of basketball outside of shot making. You've got to rebound the ball. That's the best way to possess it as many times as possible. And so I do think on paper, Carolina is obviously bigger, and that should lead to better defense and better rebounding, which is another thing Hubert Davis talked about during his 30-minute session with the media.
The added height that we have in regards to defensively, but I would also say the versatility to be able to do different things on the defensive end. In order to be good, you got to defend and rebound and take care of the basketball. But, being in a position to be elite defensively on both ends of the floor. I talked about, defensive rebounding percentage, but a huge staple of Carolina basketball, even before I was head coach, with Coach Williams, was offensive rebounding. And so that's an area that's a major emphasis for us. And, having that positional height, having that height in the front court just allows us to be able to do that and do the things that we want to do.
I do think this team is going to be maybe the best rebounding team that Carolina has fielded under Hubert, which is saying something because of how good they were 2 years ago with Mondo and then Harrison Ingram. And I say that just because I think they have, 2 through 5, man, they can rebound the ball. I don't know if Kyan Evans is going to be a guy that's impacting the games on the glass, but I think Seth Trimble to be a guard's a really good rebounder. He's stressed for Jonathan Powell to be an improved rebounder. I think Caleb Wilson, who plays with an energy and a motor that we'll learn to appreciate, he plays. I think he'll be a difference maker. And then you've got just a trio of bigs that I think will impact the game as well in that department. I think Carolina will be more committed to getting to the offensive glass while sealing up the defensive glass. The big thing for me, I think, defensively is I think Carolina in the half court with their additional size and length will be able to impact, shots more and be able to get in the passing lanes and be able to fight through ball screens a lot more effectively. And I think there'll be a better half court defense. I still believe that this is a roster that is built to full court press. And I want to see that with that size and length, especially maybe coming out of timeouts with your run and jump and your scramble defense. I think Carolina is equipped to be better in those areas than we're used to seeing. I want to see a commitment from Hubert Davis and this coaching staff to that being a part of their DNA, a part of their fabric of who they will be as a basketball team, because I think they are equipped to do it. If I didn't believe that, I would not say that. And so that's something that I hope you see, because I think he has given himself the type of, not the personality, but the flexibility to run multiple defenses. Carolina will never be a team that plays zone, but even if they want to throw 2-3 look out there, if they're having issues containing the dribble drive, or just to force teams that cannot shoot to shoot the ball from the outside, I think this roster is built to do that. And so I think it's why, on paper today, is this a team that is going to compete for a national championship? No, you would think not. But I think if it comes together the way that it can, this could be a really good team that can be able to win different style of fight, something that they weren't able to do a year ago when they struggled to live up to that preseason top 10 ranking. Let's now run through the players that he talked about individually, because he talked about a handful of them. And we'll start with the international pro, Luka Bogovac. And Hubert Davis spoke about what stands out to him as a basketball player.
He's somebody that can do a number of different things on both ends of the floor. He's got great size. Can handle it, make plays with the ball in his hands, can shoot, score at many different levels, mid-range, get to the bucket, excellent passer. And somebody that had a burning desire to be here and to be a part of this program. And as soon as he just walks into a room, it just brightens up. He just has that type of personality, and I've really enjoyed being around.
So nothing that we haven't already said this offseason: size, ability to score in a multitude of different ways. For Hubert, he likes happy guys. Hubert is a naturally joyful human being, something that I'm very envious of, because I most definitely am not. I'm much more of a curmudgeon, but Hubert likes happy, and Luka Bogovac is happy. And I think the way he plays and will impact the game on both ends of the floor will make him happy. I think the size is maybe the biggest thing that he'll add to Carolina's wing position. They got bigger in the backcourt, but the big thing last year was not only were they small in the backcourt, they were small in the wing, in addition to maybe not having the size down low as well. That's no longer the case, and a big reason why is the arrival of Luka Bogovac, who is looking to come here to take his game to the next level, to become an NBA player, to become a guy that could be drafted maybe as early as the 2026 NBA draft. The next player we'll talk about is a guy that I have talked about a lot this offseason. I've raved about a lot this offseason and kind of gone out on a limb and predicted some big things for him. That, of course, is the Colorado State transfer, Kyan Evans. Here's what the head coach of the Tar Heels had to say about his new point guard.
Yeah, the versatility, just his ability to be able to, from an offensive standpoint, make plays, whether it's with the ball in his hand coming off ball screens or off the ball actions, whether it's flares or staggers or wide pins, and just his versatility on the offensive end, being able to do that. He's an excellent defensive player. You talked about him already been in college 2 years and the success that he had in the NCAA tournament. So him coming here not only brings a high level of skill from a basketball standpoint, but also experience. It's something that we were looking for.
Yeah, I think that's something that we maybe haven't talked about enough. He's a junior coming from, the mid-major level, but a mid-major program. And when Nico Medved was at Colorado State, they were playing in big games. They were playing and advancing in the NCAA tournament. They were playing in bubble games, which are pressure-packed situations, and Kyan Evans thrived in them. I think, I also like the way he talked about his ability to become a scorer without the ball in his hands, being able to use him in the screen game to free him open. I think there's a little bit of Marcus Page element to that, where, yeah, there were times that when Marcus was dominating the ball, could create offense for himself, but also there were times when Marcus Page was playing at a high level. He was coming off of screens, coming off pin downs, and being able to get shots off in that way as well. And so there's no player that has more pressure on him than Kyan Evans, because of how important the point guard position is to Carolina. Whether it's this year, last year, 20 years from now, the point guard will always be the most important position for a UNC team. But I think you got to like how confident that Hubert Davis is that, yeah, he's transferring in. Yeah, he's taken a step up in competition, but everything that they saw that led them to recruit him in the portal, and since he arrived on campus, has reinforced their belief he was the right man for the job after, the Carolina and Elliott Cadeau all but agreed to go separate ways after, an up and down 2 years in Chapel Hill. Another transfer that Hubert Davis talked about is the sharpshooter from West Virginia, and that was Jonathan Powell. Here's what the head coach of Carolina had to say about the wingman.
Yeah, he can put the ball on the floor. He can really he can make plays off the dribble, not just shooting, but also distributing and passing. He's really aggressive on the offensive end. He's got good positional size. You talked about his defense. That's is really good. And I just love his competitiveness, just always wanting to compete, whether it's just a simple drill or obviously on 5-on-5 pickup practice. He brings a level of competitiveness that brings everybody else along to play at that level.
I think this is maybe the transfer, maybe outside of Jaden Young or, of course, Ivan Matlakovich, who transferred in really late from High Point. We haven't spent the most time talking about that could maybe have a bigger role than maybe we thought when he transferred in a month after the portal. And as we sit here now, I think the challenge for him is going to be, because so much of his shot selection last year was three-point dependent. Can they find a way when he's on the court to generate other offense? The offensive rebounding is the best way to do that. Crash the offensive glass, get scoring chances at or around the bucket. But make no mistake about it, this will be a guy that Carolina is hoping shoots 4+ threes per game and shoots 38% while doing it. And he's capable of doing just that, I think, in transition. While you're used to seeing Carolina run to the rim, this will be a guy that runs to the three-point line, because that's, with analytics, that's a shot that's more stressed. And if you shoot 38% from three, that's a lot more than shooting 50% from two. The numbers just would tell you that. So, I'm excited to see him, because the shooting ability from a pure shooter standpoint might be the best pure shooter that is on this roster. And that's why, do I think he starts when we get into the season? I do not. I think he will play a bevy of minutes, though, coming off the bench for Hubert Davis this upcoming season. A guy we have talked about a lot and will continue to talk about a lot, the Arizona transfer Henry Visar, who was the first big get for Carolina in the transfer portal, solidified that rebuilt front court that they seeked out to do after a disastrous season at that position a year ago. And Hubert Davis said the addition of Visar will make Carolina better on the defensive end of the floor.
There he is. He's got tremendous size, and it's not just blocking shots, but it's altering shots as well. And he's a really good rebounder. And so, throughout his career, he's been able to play a number of different defenses, whether it's different coverages on ball screens or being able to switch. He can guard guards out on the perimeter, and teams and individuals that have the ability to do that make them a really good defensive team. And that's something that's a high priority for us. I've talked about rebounding, but you got to defend. We got to be a really good defensive team. And when you have someone like Henry, who also is older and he's very vocal, which allows us to have really good communication, that's something that's a huge benefit for us.
I do think he'll be a great defensive anchor for Carolina. I don't think there will be as many lapses and breakdowns and miscommunications in the half court. His ability to alter shots is something that'll be a welcome sight as well. This is going to surprise you. As excited as I am about what he'll do for Carolina as a defender and a rebounder, I'm just as equally excited about him as an offensive player. I think I referenced this the last time we did a podcast, or maybe it been when I joined Locked On Tar Heels with Isaac Shade. But David Sisk, who does a really good job for THI, put out a video of how he was used as a screener at Arizona, and then just his ability to finish at the rim will be a welcomed addition to Carolina, because pretty much if he gets the ball at or near the rim, he's either going to score or he's going to score and get fouled or get fouled and go shoot free throws. I think he's so effective with his body, being able to set us a good screen, but then be able to slip it and become a really good offensive player as well. And so there's a lot riding on him. I think him and Kai and Evans may be the most pressure upon them, upon the transfers that arrived in Chapel Hill this offseason. But this is a guy that I think was coming here to be developed into an NBA player, take that next step. And I think the way that Carolina can and will use him will open that avenue for him as he seeks a professional basketball career. Let's get to one more transfer before we talk about the star incoming freshman in this year's class, and that's the Alabama transfer, Jaren Stevenson, who Hubert Davis is all excited about what he can bring to the team on the defensive end of the floor.
Him being at 6'10", one of the things that really impressed me last year when we played him was his ability on the defensive end. They put him on RJ, and he did a really good job getting around screens at 6'10", and so his versatility defensively of being able to guard multiple positions. He's a really good three-point shooter, terrific size, and so very hard to find that in your town. And so I'm so happy he's here.
Yeah, he is right. You got to remember that Jaren Stevenson is a Chapel Hill native that got away from Carolina and went to Alabama, but he's here now. And his three-point shooting hasn't been what it was supposed to be coming out of high school. I think a lot of that was maybe he was playing out of position. I do think that Carolina will cultivate a better role for him, will get a better version of him. Make no mistake about it. In an era where every team has 3-and-D dudes, they're not 6'10". They're 6'5", 6'6". They might top out at 6'7", maybe 6'8". 6'10" is a difference maker, man. I think he is going to be an animal defensively. And I don't think it was in that audio there, but maybe it was. Hubert referenced him guarding RJ last year when Alabama came to Carolina for the ACC SEC Challenge. This is a guy that Carolina can literally put on point guards, and it would not be a mismatch defensively. They would be very confident that actually they're causing a problem for the opponent as opposed to the opponent causing a problem for them. I think they will work on the shot selection, make him more of a corner three-point shooter. That's the most effective three-point shot is the one in the corner because it's the closest. But even if he shoots 33, 34%, I think what he'll bring to this team defensively will trump all that. I think he's going to be, while a great individual defender, I think his ability to connect Carolina defensively is going to be something that will not be talked about enough if Carolina does become the type of defensive team that I think that they are capable of being. And so we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. But I think they'll have a better role for him, a much more defined role for him. And you'll see the Jaren Stevenson in Carolina that you thought you were missing out on when he initially went to Alabama. Let's now get to the freshman, Caleb Wilson, the incoming 5-star. Hubert Davis was full of praises talking about Caleb Wilson.
From a basketball standpoint, I think you guys know he's just uber talented. I mean, his length and his athleticism, he can handle the basketball at that size, finish around the rim, shoot, mid-range, defensively, can do a number of different things. As much as I can talk about how impressed I am of him on the court, I'm even more impressed of him as a kid and a teammate. Everything that he talks about is never about him. And I mean that. Like, everything that he talks about is about the team, and it's about North Carolina. Everything. And for someone highly ranked coming in here to not only talk about it, but only really be concerned about the welfare and the benefit of the team is something that is rare. And it's something that I really enjoy and love being around every day.
You know that's something that's going to make Hubert Davis's heart smile on the inside, and then that smile would be able to be projected on the outside. I think from what I can tell, we were at the concert on Monday waiting for Chase Rice. You saw Caleb Wilson there at Polk Place. I think he just loves being a Tar Heel, and I think he's enjoying the Carolina experience. And I think he's evidence and proof that you can be a high-flying five-star recruit that, yes, they get a financial package to come to Carolina, but have 2 feet in. And that's something that Hubert Davis stresses, is that when you come here, you're going to be a part of Carolina, not just the basketball program, but the community. And I think Caleb Wilson has enjoyed being a Tar Heel. What comes along with being a proverbial star basketball player on UNC, you become the BMC, you become the big man on campus. I think he has invited all of that. And I think he's ready to go out there and perform. I think the more that we get to see him and get to know him and hear about him, there's a lot of Harrison Ingram in this young man. And if he's half the player, 2/3 the player, 3/4 the player that Harrison Ingram was during his lone season in Chapel Hill after transferring in from Stanford, Carolina's going to be doggone good. Because when Hubert Davis has nailed the stretch 4 position, he has become an offensive rebound away from winning a national championship. And I know that was a team that was on a run, but I think if Brady Manick would have started out that year, that team wins 30-plus games, and who knows, maybe they eventually cut down the nets. But you have that year, and then you had 23-24, 29 wins, an ACC regular season title, a 1 seed in the tournament, advancing to the Sweet 16 before a culture unite against Alabama. And then last year, it took until the very end. But once they figured out the 4 spot, they took off. Won 11 of their last 13, 14 games, made the tournament, won a game in the first 4 before ultimately losing to Ole Miss. So if Carolina, if they get it right, and Kyan Evans is what he's supposed to be, Luka Bogavac is what he's supposed to be, and Henry Visar is the anchor down low that he's just expected to be, then this team will live up to that $14 million investment they made this offseason when they put this roster together. So really, it's really excited about him, but he also likes the experience that comes with Caleb Wilson joining a roster that was rebuilt through the portal, but he's not joining an inexperienced roster. And Hubert Davis talked about the importance of that as well.
Well, I think it's important to have, and something that I really like about this team is the versatility in terms of classification. You have obviously seniors like Seth, but you've got juniors and sophomores and guys that have been there and done it before, and so to have that type of experience around Caleb, I think it's always been good. Like when I came to Carolina, my senior was Steve Bucknell and Jeff Lebo. And so, they showed me how to prepare, how to practice in order to put me in a position how to play. When I got drafted by the Knicks, I had veterans like Doc Rivers and Patrick Ewing and John Starks and Charles Oakley. And so Caleb coming in and seeing guys like Seth and Henry and what has allowed them to be successful throughout their career, I think that's a huge benefit for a young player to be able to emulate and be able to do the things in his own game.
Experience right now is the name of the game in college basketball. And the best teams that can construct a roster with young talent that is surrounded by seasoned veterans are teams that can compete for national championships. It's something that I do think hindered Duke in their choke job last year in the Final Four, but it's something that enabled Florida because that was just a roster that had seen a lot of basketball. They played in a lot of big-time games and big-time environments. And so I think that was the challenge for Hubert Davis was you were adding a guy like Caleb Wilson who, from a talent perspective, the most gifted player on Carolina's roster. Even over Luka Bogavac, who was thinking about entering the NBA draft this past year, Caleb Wilson's talent is superior to his. But talent doesn't guarantee you wins in March. And Carolina has to win in March, and Hubert Davis knows that. Experience wins just as much as talent does. And you look at the starting five that he is expected to be a part of, it's going to be a rising junior, Kyan Evans, a fourth-year senior in Seth Trimble, a 21-year-old in Luka Bogovac, and then a third-year player in Henry Visar. Like, he's not playing with other fellow freshmen or, sophomores. He's playing with guys that have gone through the battles. They've been in the trenches of, playing on teams to make the tournament, how to win in the tournament. And all that, I think, was going to benefit him and elevate him in ways that, had he been stuck on a roster like a Kansas or a Duke or a Kentucky where they just reload year after year with youthful talent, I don't think Caleb Wilson will shine the way I think he's set to shine in what will more than likely be his one season in Chapel Hill. We're making our way through the Hubert Davis offseason press conference. He held his session with the media on Tuesday afternoon at the Smith Center. We've got 6 more audio cuts to make our way through. If you see me coughing when a cut is playing, do want to apologize. That's the effects of what happened on Monday, where I was a fan for about an hour and a half of what was the best football environment I've ever seen in Chapel Hill. Hopefully we get a chance to recreate something like that this season or down the road. So I'm not sick. I'm just a little sore in the throat. And that's why you see me coughing a little bit off the camera. But let's go ahead and run through these final 6 quotes and get out of here on a Wednesday night. The next piece of sound that we'll talk about transitions to Seth Trimble, the rising senior guard for Carolina, or I guess he already is a senior considering the school year is underway. And Hubert Davis did confirm that he has assumed a leadership role for the team.
He has stepped up into that leadership role. I mean, Seth throughout his career has been an accomplished player, and for him to stay at one institution is not normal. His leadership has been off the chart this summer, not only like verbally, but also just the way that he has led on the court in regards to extra workouts, conditioning, drill work, practice. It feels really good to have Seth be our leader of our team, and I'm so thankful that he's here.
I think this is one thing I'm really excited to see. You always love seeing leaders emerge. And it was a big talking point last year for Carolina was the lack of on-court leadership. And that was frustrating because you had a guy like RJ Davis who was in his 5th year, scored over 2,000 points, you thought was going to be a vocal leader. But you can't make guys lead. You're either born a leader or you're born a follower. And I'm not saying that RJ was a follower, but he wasn't the vocal leader that roster needed a year ago. I think Seth Trimble could have been, but I think just the nature of RJ being back, excuse me, he did not feel empowered to be the vocal leader. That's not going to be the case this year. As revamped as this roster is, the influx of talent from the portal, this is Seth Trimble's team, and he needs to lead it. And I think, from what we've been told right there from Hubert, he has led it so far and will continue to lead it as we get closer to the start of official practice, on into the preseason exhibitions, and then on into the regular season. And another thing Hubert Davis talked about, and something that's really cool that we have another one of these guys that we can kind of hang our hats on after a guy like Armando, maybe after a guy like RJ Davis, is not only is Seth Trimble a leader for the team, he's become an ambassador for the program and the university.
He's an ambassador for this program. He really is. For him to be here 4 years, he's done a lot. He's seen a lot. And within his personality, he has done similar things as Armando. One of the things that's really important to Seth is not only for Carolina to be good, but for Carolina to be good, when he leaves. And this place means something to him. And the way that he leads and the way that he carries himself every day puts our program in a position to be successful.
You gotta love that. And There was some backlash when he entered the portal and then returned, but I think he returned because I do think he did not get what he thought he was going to get in the portal financially. The interest, I don't think, was as high as we thought it was going to be from a Marquette or Wisconsin, two schools that were close to where he grew up in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. But I do identify Seth Trimble as a Carolina guy. When he withdrew from the portal and he made his graphic, he said, quote, "My heart and soul belongs in Chapel Hill." And I think he has lived that and he embodies that. He's now a business owner. He owns a Ben & Jerry's, which is the coolest thing I think I've ever seen from a college basketball player. That's the benefit of the NIL. That's the benefit of revenue sharing, is these guys can start making, financial investments that'll change their life, whether they play professionally or not. And so, he's a Tar Heel, and I think he embodies what you want to see a Carolina basketball player be in 2025. In this day and time where you see guys leave left and right, he becomes that next guy like Armando, like RJ. Seth stayed, and I think it makes it easier to root for him. And if he has the season that he's capable of having, he can become an all-time Tar Heel. Maybe not for me, maybe not for Anthony, but maybe for that 7-year-old who's just being introduced to Carolina basketball for the first time, and their favorite player could be a Seth Trimble. I think that's so cool. That's so unique. And that's something that we need more of here in modern day college athletics. Two quotes coming up here. And it's the first time publicly we've heard Hubert Davis talk about Jim Tanner, the new GM of Carolina basketball. Of course, when Carolina made the hire, they did release a statement through the program from Hubert Davis, but this was the first time he was directly asked. And this first time he directly answered questions about Jim, and he talked about the working relationship he has with the GM.
Jim is a part of our team and a part of our program, and I'm really thankful that he's here. We were friends prior to him becoming the general manager. We worked extremely well together. The thing that there's a number of great things about him, but his burning desire, because just like all of us as coaches have gone here to Carolina, he just has a burning desire for this program and this university to be successful. And so we work extremely well together. And just like all of us on the staff, we want us to be successful.
This is something that I really ranted about when we did the last edition of the pod, which is when the Ion College Basketball did their offseason assessment. Joe Ovius joined Gary Parrish, and I thought was just overly critical of the Jim Tanner hire, calling it really closed-minded and proof that Carolina hasn't evolved. With a guy that's got 27 years of experience working with agents in the NBA, has all the established relationships that he has, I do think that he's going to be a benefit to Carolina in more ways than one. We got to see how this works out, obviously, but I thought Carolina made a tremendous hire. And I believe it was Art Chansky that was trying to get it out of him. I couldn't quite tell who was asking the question, but usually in sports, the GM is a talent evaluator. He's the guy that drafts the players. He's the guy that makes the trade. That's not necessarily what Jim Tanner is going to do. He might offer his opinion to Hubert Davis. He might offer some advice to Hubert Davis, but he's not here to evaluate talent on the level like you see at the NBA. And so, with that in mind, Hubert Davis talked about the ways in which Jim Tanner is an asset to the Carolina basketball program.
I think, he brings something to the table. For 27 years, he was an agent. So this is someone, and he's a lawyer. So that's someone that obviously has connections with, a number of different other agencies, his connections to the NBA. He's someone that can write and read and understand contracts. And so those are things that, a skill set that is a huge benefit for us. And as I said before, it has worked really well, and I've enjoyed and loved him being a part of this team.
And I think that's important to remember, is that this contract language, especially now, it's very tricky. You got to make sure you're getting it right. He'll be an asset for that. The 27 years in the NBA means he knows people, and relationships are as important as they've ever been. in college athletics with the arrival of NIL, with the arrival of revenue sharing. And I do think for a guy that has, dealt with big-time players that got big-time contracts, Carolina's got to make the most out of their money, and you've got a guy that I think will make sure Carolina is responsible with how much funding they truly have to fill their roster out year after year. It was reported of the $20.5 million in revenue sharing money that the program has to spend, about 7 of it will go to basketball. So if 13 is going to football, you get half of that for basketball. But football, you've got a roster of 90-plus players. Basketball, you got a roster of 15. How can you manage that $7 million the best? I think Jim Tanner is going to be a great asset for Hubert Davis in that regard. I think the alum status, we can complain about it. We can loathe about it. I do think that adds motivation for him to help Carolina become Carolina basketball again and win ACC championships, be 1 seeds in the tournament, go to the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, the Final Four on a year-in, year-out basis. And so we got to see how it plays out, and I get that. There was not a better name on the table from what was reported about the GM search, and I do think that if he had the experience that he has, but he went to Furman, I don't think this job is getting criticized the way that it is. But because his degree says the University of North Carolina, guys like Joe Ovius, Jeff Goodman will say, well, they're still doing what they've always done. They haven't learned their lesson. I think the sign that they brought him in is proof that they have learned their lesson, but they're going to bring in someone that has a close connection to the guy that they're hoping will establish himself as the long-term answer on the bench in Chapel Hill. 2 more pieces of sound for you, and we will get out of here. Following up the Jim Tanner stuff, Hubert Davis was asked, could Carolina still sell itself on the high school recruiting trail when they're recruiting the transfer portal or when they're recruiting internationally without the financial component attached to it?
Maybe I'm naive in saying they are, but I really believe that it's important to a number of kids to not only put on this uniform and run out of that tunnel and play on that floor, but also be a part of this university and get an education here and also be a part of this community and being able to serve in the community, be able to give back. And that's something that we do with our guys. I always tell them, your job and your responsibility is to be elite in 3 areas: on the court, off the court, and in the classroom. And all of our guys not only do a terrific job of that, they embrace it. And the guys that we recruit and the guys that we bring in buy into those 3 things as well.
This is something that if he is naive, it might ultimately cost him his job, but this is something that he believes in, and he's not going to stray away. And I do think it is possible to get guys to want to play for you without you having to throw a bag their way. The bag helps, being able to offer them $500,000, $750,000, maybe north of $1 million, $2 million, whatever. That stuff I do think definitely makes it easier. But for a guy like Luka Bogovac, who was an international pro that could have went to the NBA, I don't think he came here just because of the money. He was making money overseas. Yes, it's more here, but he was still getting paid. I think a guy like Kyan Evans, who, yes, got paid, but understands that when you play point guard at Carolina, there's a burden of expectation. You got to live up to Phil Ford. You got to live up to Kenny Smith. You got to live up to Ray Felton, Ty Lawson, Marcus Page, Kendall Marshall, so on and so forth. And so I do think that it's possible that Carolina can still value what they value off the court, sell themselves to recruits coming out of high school, in the portal, or internationally, and still get those guys here. And I think you're going to see an uptick in recruiting this cycle. Darren Rippey Jr. was just on campus, and they're set to host a bunch of 5 more prospects over the next month or so. They're going to get the talent to come visit them. Now, can they seal the deal and make sure that that talent commits to them? Because if so, Carolina's in a real prime position to become a big-time player, whether they remain in the ACC through 2030 or they make the move to the SEC or the Big Ten sometime in the near future. Let's now get to the final piece of sound that we're going to play. It was the second to last answer of his press conference, and it was the longest answer of his press conference. But when he met with the media, Hubert Davis did admit that he is aware that there is pressure to win going into the season?
I feel the same way that I have felt the last 4 years. There is a pressure and an expectation for us to be good this year. But that pressure and that expectation for us to be good is no different than any other year. The standard is at the highest here. I always talk to the guys, the standard is the standard. And there's an expectation every year for us to reach that standard. And, you talked about the last 4 years, and I actually had a conversation with Kirsch last week, and yeah, there's a pressure and expectation to be good this year, but also in some sense to keep it there, if that makes sense. The first year we rebound away from winning the national championship, but the next year we win 20 games and we don't make it to the NCAA tournament. And the third year we're top 5 team pretty much the whole season, number 1, seed in NCAA tournament, won the regular season title. And then last year we went 23 games and just made the NCAA tournament. And so there is a determination to get there and to stay there, if that makes sense to you.
This was my favorite answer of his entire presser. And this was, I thought, a really insightful press conference where he answered just about every question in the manner that you would have liked and hoped for him to answer. He may be off social media. He may not have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is. But he knows what's on the line this year. And I like that. I hate that we're in that position, but I like that he doesn't think that all is well. And it's important to remember, every program except Duke would take the last 4 years in this conference and not bat an eye. Even a program that's as proud as Louisville would rather have had what Carolina's done over the last 4 years than what they've done over the last 4 years. The most important part of that answer wasn't just attaining success at the highest level, it's sustaining it. And that's the hardest thing to do, I think, in this climate of college athletics. You're seeing it with the Alabama football program. Post Nick Saban, Kalen DeBoer is 9-5. And all you hear about is just how everything has changed in Tuscaloosa, and none of it is for the better. And it's why his job will come into question if they don't win 10, 11 games and make the playoff and win a game or two in the playoff. The same case is here for Carolina. You could say you were a rebound away from winning a national championship, but you didn't win a national championship. This isn't horseshoes, man. Close isn't good enough. Almost isn't good enough. And that's in large part because we're just spoiled when, Coach Smith has the record, the 20-something straight years of top 3 finishes in the ACC, the 20 straight years it was, I think, in the Sweet 16 or further. Some stuff will never be replicated. And then here comes Roy Williams and 3 national championships, 5 Final Fours, 9 ACC regular season titles, all the 1 seeds and all the Sweet 16s and the Elite 8s. So then it was duplicated. And now we're trying to do it again for the 3rd time. And so I think, that fire still burns in Hubert to get Carolina there. You know how much this place means to him. This is the only place he wants to be. This is the only place he wants to coach. It's why I hope we don't have to talk about him getting fired, because it's not like we get to follow his coaching career somewhere else. If he gets fired, he will not coach basketball. I doubt he gets back into television. And when do we see Hubert Davis again? I like Hubert Davis being the face of my program because I love the man that he is. I love what he stands for on and off the basketball court. He played for Dean Smith. He was mentored on the bench by Roy Williams. He's the best blend for both. That's why he's the best option for the job. And so I hope he has the season he needs to have so we can quit talking about his job security and just talk about what do we got to do to enable him to become a national champion head coach. What do we have to do for him to become a coach on the path to becoming a Hall of Famer? because that's what this job expects, is what this job requires, what the job demands. And I think he's capable of being that. I think Hubert Davis can be on the short list of best coaches in the sport. I think he can be on the list of coaches to make the Hall of Fame. But it's only possible if he shows out and in a big way. And Carolina wins 25-plus games, finishes at bare minimum top 4 in the ACC, and wins at least a game, maybe 2 games in the NCAA tournament. So, he's aware of that, but I think he is motivated to kind of shut the critics up, shut the haters up, and be the head coach that he is capable of being. And I think he's capable of being one of the 3 to 5 best coaches that college basketball has to offer. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Four Corners podcast, guys. Did have some other stuff I was hoping to get to. We're 50-plus minutes in. We'll get to it on the backside or on the next edition of the pod. But, there was a big family reunion this past weekend for the Carolina basketball program, and Adam Lucas had some tidbits about some of the pickup games, so we'll dive into that. A big recruiting weekend, as well as 2 5-stars were on campus. We'll touch on that the next time that we do get here. But in the meantime, we will direct you guys to the website. That's HeelToughBlog.com, where it's still full-blown pedal to the metal football even after the result on Monday. We're turning our page. We're getting ready for the game against Charlotte. Anthony will have you covered with a preview of the game. I've got an article that'll come out as well about what Carolina should do at the quarterback position. I've really taken on a burden, or not a burden, but I've really become impassioned to be more involved on the football side of stuff on the website and the blog. So you'll see me start to contribute on both of those in a major way this football season. Any news and notes on the basketball side of things, we'll have you covered as well. Simply put, HeelToughBlog.com every single day, morning, afternoon, and evening, for the latest, the best coverage of Carolina basketball and North Carolina football. As for the podcast, you guys know where to find us. Every major podcasting platform, simply search the Four Corners Podcast and we will pop up. There, we encourage you guys to rate, review, and subscribe. That way you don't miss any editions of the show throughout the remainder of the basketball off season. Well, with that, guys, it is going to wrap up this edition of the show. I want to thank you guys for watching and listening. And as always, go Tar Heels.